Kenya Jarrett, and today I will be exploring the Endangered Species Act, its history, some of the species that it is helping to protect, and the conflict surrounding the issue of endangered species population decline and the impacts of the Endangered Species Act on land and business owners. The idea of conservation began long before the Endangered Species Act, otherwise known as the ESA, was implemented. Beginning as early as the 1800s, the first signs of species impairment in the U.S. became obvious and sparked public concern and the earliest political action. In 1872, Yellowstone National Park was created, in part to preserve the endangered bison and other ungulates with declining populations. During the 1890s, after watching the bison's numbers decrease, Americans began to recognize a problem with the numerous other terrestrial species becoming endangered. This decline in population was due to a number of causes, including overharvest, the new railroad system, and other structures being built, destroying the habitats of many species. With the new railroad system, there was a huge increase in the distribution of firearms, which led to mass hunting, making the problem even worse. Laws began to be put into place to limit hunting. Even though there was a growing number of conservation and preservation efforts, the mental state of citizens played a huge factor in the recovery of species. I took some time to meet with Richard Whitecloud, co-founder of Sea Turtle Oversight Protection, also known as STOP. His organization focuses on sea turtle conservation here in South Florida. Richard Whitecloud has a vast knowledge of the ESA and its history. This is what he had to say about how the idea of conservation began and how it led to the ESA.
The Endangered Species Act actually came from a collective movement that was born from the Earth Day movement. So all of these people that were inspired to start the official Earth Day movement, well, in the modern society, that collective consciousness turned into an Earth Day celebration, wherein that collective consciousness eventually evolved into all of these people contacting their congressional representatives and saying, hey, you know, we are acknowledging this Earth Day, but out of that Earth Day acknowledgement, how else are we going to protect our environmental resources?
More than 500 species went extinct in North America before the passing of the ESA. Several acts and laws preceded the ESA, including the Endangered Species Preservation Act of 1966, allowing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or FWS, to acquire land as habitat for endangered species, as well as a listing of species as endangered. The FWS enforces federal wildlife laws. The act was amended in 1969 to provide additional protection to those species that were at risk of worldwide extinction. The importation and sale of endangered species was prohibited in the U.S., and the act's name was changed to the Endangered Species Conservation Act. 4 years later, 80 nations came together to sign CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. CITES monitors and sometimes restricts the international commemorations of species that would be harmed by the trade. On December 27th of 1973, Richard Nixon signed the Endangered Species Act into law. The Endangered Species Act provided the guidelines to classify endangered and threatened species.
Critically endangered means that the population of said organism that is listed as critically endangered is in extreme risk of becoming extinct due to the inability of humans to assist that animal or organism to recover in its population totals. Endangered means that it is at risk of becoming critically endangered, which means that there are still organisms that are large enough for us to be able to say that if we do something beneficial for this organism, then they have the possibilities to recover to where their population is more significant. And then threatened is when this animal is losing habitat, losing population totals, and is at risk of becoming an endangered species.
The ESA applied take prohibitions to all endangered and some threatened species. take means to harass, harm, pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, trap, capture, collect, or attempt to engage in any such conduct. This, of course, does not prevent people from doing so, but the consequences are a deterrent. The ESA also made it so that federal agencies are required to use their authorities to conserve listed species. They are also prohibited from authorizing, funding, or carrying out any action that could jeopardize a listed species or destroy its critical habitat. The Act made funds available to states to help ensure that they cooperate. The ESA also provides the implementation of CITES in the U.S. Because of the Endangered Species Act, many of the most endangered animals across the nation survived their destined extinction, including the bald eagle, the California condor, the gray wolf, and many others. In Florida, the ESA protections have been a major contributor to the survival and rebound of the green and leatherback sea turtles and the Florida manatee. Many nonprofit organizations, such as the Sea Turtle Oversight Protection, partner with Fish and Wildlife Service to enforce the ESA and protect endangered and threatened species.
Well, nesting has definitely increased since our organization has started back in 2010. But the problem is that even though we've seen nesting density increase, we've also had population and coastal development increase. So as we're seeing more nests come online and being deposited on the coastal system, we're also seeing larger development being constructed along the coastal system, and we're also seeing a higher use of demand of the coastal ecology because of tourism increasing, and Florida's population is increasing. So we have this constant competing scenarios between, human access and usage of the coastal habitat and the need for the turtles to have access to the coastal habitat.
There have been major nest increases in recent years. The Florida manatee had population numbers nearing extinction due largely to catastrophic habitat destruction and wounding by high-speed recreational watercrafts. Because of protection provided by the ESA, manatee speed zones limiting watercraft speed and even prohibiting them have been implemented. Organizations such as Save the Manatees also help protect and rehabilitate injured manatees. These protections have enabled the population to recover enough to be moved from endangered status to threatened. The Endangered Species Act has proven to be vital in the recovery of many endangered and threatened species. However, some think it is trying too hard to help more than it has the power to, while others think that it isn't doing enough. Some even feel that it is blocking human progress. Some landowners are opposed to the act because they are worried the FWS will take their land and deem it as protected habitat. However, there are very few such cases. Large business and corporations are sometimes opposed to the act because it may prevent them from taking profitable shortcuts that may harm endangered species or their habitats. In my opinion, the growth of businesses and the human population are destroying the planet. We need to work together to preserve what we can. The ESA acts as a guideline for us to do this.
The Endangered Species Act has the ability to be a very good piece of legislation. However, humans still have a behavioral issue that prevent us from upholding the Endangered Species Act to really reach its fullest potential. So if we have an Endangered Species Act, but it's not enforced properly, then the intent of the Endangered Species Act is not reaching its fullest potential. So that's why organizations like ours had to be formed in order to compensate for the deficiencies of that enforcement problem.
The Endangered Species Act will likely continue to evolve and compromise, as it has in history, to accommodate evolving needs and conflicts.
All right, now this little loggerhead turtle we are naming Kenya. Kenya had to be rescued from artificial light pollution, and now she is going to be released at the water's edge so that she can find the ocean easily and make her long journey out to the Gulf Stream. Swim strong, little Kenya. Hopefully we'll see you back here in about 25 or 30 years. Oh, Kenya is a strong swimmer. There she goes. She's on her way. Go, Kenya.